The Western Cape Education Department saying it will not take action against the teachers who attended a private matric party in Brackenfell involving only white people. The DA coming under fire for comparing yesterday's EFF protest to Nazi Germany. Debbie Schaefer is the Western Cape Education MEC and she joins us now on the line. Debbie, a very good morning to you and welcome to our program.
Morning, Bongani. Thank you very much.
Let's just maybe get from your knowledge, the background to the story, what the department was aware of, what the school was aware of in the organizing of this event.
Since this incident was highlighted last week, we have obviously made inquiries about what exactly happened. And the information I have to date is that because the matric farewell, the usual school matric dance was cancelled because of COVID, some learners, who are a group of friends as far as I understand, and their parents organised a private function for them so that they could have some kind of farewell, for themselves. There were 42 out of the 254, I think, matrics who were involved, and they had this event at a private venue. After that happened, some people were alleging racial discrimination and that only white people attended the function. It does appear that only white people did attend the function, but it wasn't true that people were excluded because they were black, because many white people also were not invited to the function. So essentially, the school said they did, it wasn't arranged by them, wasn't sanctioned, they didn't fund it or anything. It was a private arrangement. There were a few teachers, not all of them by any means, who were invited because these learners felt a particular affiliation to them, and that was what happened.
How many teachers were in attendance at this event?
I'm battling to get a complete clarity, but I've heard 2. I'm still waiting for finality on that, but I think no more than 2 or 4 as far as I can get.
It could be 2, it could be 4. Was the principal aware of this party and what was going to happen?
I'm not sure whether he was aware or not. I'm still finding that out, but he certainly wasn't at that I have found out.
Is it hard for you to imagine that if he wasn't in attendance, he certainly would have known that 2 or 4 of his staff members might have been going to this party?
He may well have, but I don't think it's his job really to tell teachers what to do in their private time. If people invite them to an event, that is a privately organised function.
I would put it to you, Debbie, that some will say it's disingenuous to say that this was merely a private matter organised by 42 learners and their parents, particularly, of course, if the non-white learners at the school were excluded from the event. The numbers obviously will dictate that some white learners would be excluded, but that's not really the point. When these schools were founded, black learners were not allowed to attend in the old dispensation. And so the idea of inclusion and inclusive society would certainly ring bells to anybody who says, hang on, how could that significant a number out of the total learner body organize a party and not have anybody who isn't white?
I would put it to you that if we're going to start telling people what to do in their private parties, I think that's going down a very dangerous road. And whilst I understand sensitivities, if every single white learner had been invited to that party and the black learners were excluded, absolutely that would be a huge problem and it would be complete and utter blatant discrimination. But I don't buy the argument that just because some people who are friends and are all white have an event and other people who are not invited, including white people, I don't think we can take it as far as to say that was unfair discrimination.
Surely the minute that the teachers are involved, it stops becoming simply a private affair. The teachers are there as representatives of that school and by extension your department.
Well, we'll have to find out actually what exactly happened and why they were invited. But I know many people who are very close to certain teachers. So, I'm not going to speculate on why those particular teachers were invited. That will be part of our further questioning.
Surely as leaders of an institution, a public institution, in the context of the history of the school, if you as a teacher are invited to such an event, wouldn't you first begin by saying who's coming, who's going to be there? Wouldn't you raise flags and say, hang on, how's that working?
To be honest, I'm really not sure what I would do. This whole incident obviously has raised a lot of questions. But I really think that people who want to find racism will find it, whether it was intended there or not. And I honestly think that, people do invite teachers, and I'm not convinced that teachers would say, well, who's going to be there? I mean, they might have asked the question. I really don't know. I'm not going to speak on their behalf. I haven't asked them.
The EFF, of course, conducted a protest outside the school, and the DA statements, your party have sought to draw an equivalence between the actions of the protesters outside the school and the mob, some of parents, members of that community who fell upon them, attacked them indiscriminately, including members of the media. Do you stand by that?
I did not issue that statement, and I would not like to comment. I think you need to speak to my colleague, Bonginkosi Madikizela, who issued that statement.
But what's your view? I mean, do you agree that the EFF are equivalent to the Nazi brown shirts?
My view is that people have the constitutional right to protest if it's peaceful, and if that's what they were doing, they have the right to protest. But I did not issue that statement, so I really don't want to comment.
By all appearances, that's exactly what they were doing. I mean, they'd hardly arrived at that school before this mob fell upon them. Surely you've seen the footage. It was on television. It's extensively shared on social media. Have you not looked at it?
Yes, I have seen it, and that's why I'm saying please ask my colleagues.
But I'm asking you, it was you, the MEC for Education. This happened at a school that your department would be in charge of. Surely you've got a view.
I do have a view, but I didn't issue the statement, so I don't want to comment on it.
So do you separate yourself from that statement? It's a little hard for you to come onto the program and say you don't want to comment on something as profoundly hurtful as that, Debbie.
Well, I was just called now and asked to be on the show. I wasn't told exactly what you want to ask either. And I mean, I obviously am a member of the DA, but I issued my statement, and I will speak to my statement. And if you want to get Bonginkosi view on his statement, I really would ask that you ask him to motivate that. My view is people have a right to peacefully protest. That is a constitutionally guaranteed right.
So do you condemn at least the actions of that community? I mean, you certainly cannot say there was an equivalence between the two sides.
I condemned in my statement yesterday the activities of anybody who instigated violence and who committed violence. I have done that already yesterday, and I do so again. Violence is not the way to solve the problems at all. It's really not acceptable, no matter what the excuse. And I really would ask that people stop interrupting the learners' exams who are trying to write matric off for a very difficult year.
Brackenfell High has a history of this kind of thing. There was a social media post in 2007 in which, and I quote now, "Maybe Hitler had a point. Blondes with blue eyes have made quite the impression here at Brackenfell High School," wrote one of the learners. This was a post on social media to introduce student leaders at the school. In that context, do you accept that having a whites-only matric farewell, even though privately organized, with the attendance of teachers at the school might be problematic?
I saw that post only last night on social media, and I've already asked for more information on that, and I certainly will look into that. And if that was a genuine post from the school, I have a problem with it, and we will certainly take further action in that regard.
So let's assume that it was a genuine post. In that context, to then have a whites-only gathering with the sanction of the school, do you accept that to be problematic?
Bongani, I've said to you, it is a private event, and we are not going to tell people to have diversity quotas in a private function. If it was organized by the school, that's a different matter. My information is that it was not organized by the school. So whatever the context, people have a right to have private parties. They have a right to invite who they want to the parties, and unfortunately, that is how it is. If there is other racism at the school, then absolutely, I will investigate that.
So where to from here, Debbie? Will there be any investigation going on forward as far as what actually happened, or do you accept it was a private party, nothing to see here, we move on?
I will ask them further questions. I have already started asking questions about the venue and so on and so forth. I'll have a look at the invitations and see what exactly was, how the invitations were phrased and so on. And I certainly will take further that post that you've referred to now, which I saw last night. If there are any other allegations of racism that is happening at the school, I would ask that people refer them to my office, directly to my office with details, and we will absolutely look into it.
Well, I would put it to you, there is one, here's one very clear example with the exclusion exclusion of these non-white learners, where the teachers have intimate knowledge of what is going on, and you're not taking it as a racist incident. I mean, this is as close to our fine people on both sides moment as we can have.
Well, I think we have a different view on that, as I've said. I'm not going to start telling people you have to have certain people at your party.
Fair enough. Debbie Schaefer, the Western Cape Education MEC.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.